Are you ready for some creepy, true stories from Reddit? Don't plan on sleeping tonight because these scary stories will give you fright at night. Ever since I was little, my godmother would always take care of me. She had a healing power, meaning she could cure stomach aches, headaches, pain in the body, and all sorts of discomforts with just a prayer and white towels. She had this magical way about her with just her presence was enough to comfort you. I loved her dearly and remembered going over to her house at times, which was right next to my parents' house. However, sometimes when I visited her, she would seem like she was out of it. She would randomly speak to the wind in different tongues and languages that I didn't understand. She also had this old radio, which was always playing the news in the background, and it would lose the signal randomly as she cooked in the kitchen. She was always nice to me and never did anything that scared me, but I did notice some weird patterns and behaviors from time to time. My house had 2 floors, and my room was located on the 2nd floor. One night, I remember having this weird feeling before going to sleep and had trouble closing my eyes. It felt as if there was a presence in my room that would not let me rest. After many episodes of blinking, closing, and opening my eyes in intervals, I finally fell asleep. What happened next still haunts me to this day. I started foaming at the mouth all of a sudden. My entire body was shaking uncontrollably, and I was making this humming sound that would get louder and louder. And my parents rushed into my room, disturbed by the horrible noises I was making, and tried to wake me up in an attempt to help me snap out of whatever I was going through. I was having an intense nightmare where I would try to reach out to my godmother to hug her, and she would disappear and appear in a different spot away from me. I was sweating and still foaming at the mouth, accompanied by the sustained shakes and jerks my entire body was making. I finally opened my eyes and looked at the window, and there was my godmother staring right at me, but she quickly disappeared. I found out later that she had died that night in her house. I work as a board operator from my high school, and am studying to be a lighting designer. Now, our theater was known to be haunted, if you believe in that sort of thing. A student had died many years ago, and it was said he haunted the theater and messed with lighting. I figured it was just the way students dodged blame when they messed something up. Some stories said he died after falling from the grid, but in reality he had died of a rare form of cancer. All of this cast serious doubt on the ghost stories, and I didn't really believe in ghosts, so I never took it seriously. So I often forget to thank him at his plaque on the wall, as is school tradition. Back in my freshman year, during the first show I had been allowed to run the lightboard for, I was pretty nervous. Our stage manager assured me everything would be fine, and he even agreed to help me if needed. It was part way through the second night, and everything was going okay. I was still a little on edge because I was still new. Then about half an hour into the show, the stage manager begins to scowl. I ask him what's wrong, and he says that the spotlight operators think someone is up there with them. Our auditorium is set up so the only way to reach the catwalk and to be with the spotlighters is a ladder in the closet. It's the only way in, and it's placed in a hall we have blocked off on show nights. In addition, we make sure they lock the door behind them. They all seem really worried, and we had the thought there was some kind of serial killer up there. One of the spot people decides he is going to look around and try to find the intruder. Then after a minute, the spot people stop responding. We make sure the communication system is working, and it is. We try texting them, calling them, and nothing works. We send up our director to check on them. 5 minutes pass, and still nothing. To make matters worse, our director never came back. We decided to send up the second guy, who had a solid 20 minutes until his next cue. 5 more minutes, and still nothing, and no one has come back. We are kind of freaking out, and then it happened. The loudest, most blood-curdling, clanging metal noise starts coming from the catwalk. We all stand up and begin flipping out, staring at the source of the noise, muttering profanities under our breaths. The actors and audiences are visibly frightened, but the show must go on. After about 5 seconds, the noises stop. and then the spotlight operators come back on unaware that anything happened. The director comes back, and so does our sound guy. None of them had any idea what we were talking about. The director said it was probably just the heating system, except the school was too cheap to heat the building in the spring after hours. To this day, no one is exactly sure what happened, but me and the others in the booth that day are convinced it was our theater's ghost's way of reminding that I didn't thank him. I've never lived in a haunted house, but my mother did as a teen. Other houses on the street had strange things going on too. A family she knew well lived just a few houses away from. One night, the young girl down the street went to bed with a bad headache. The next day, she was dead. She'd passed away from an aneurysm. After her funeral, the family went away to get their minds off the tragedy, and her father asked my uncle to check on their pets. My mom and dad, who were dating at the time, went with him. My mother had heard there was a grand piano and she wanted to play it. My dad was studying to be a veterinarian. After entering the house, my uncle and my father headed to the basement to check on the animals, and my mother went to play the piano on the ground floor. She was playing it when she felt something brush her ankles. She thought a cat must have come up from the basement and walked past her, so she just kept playing. And then she felt it again. She looked under the piano and saw nothing. And when she started playing again, she felt hands grab her ankles tightly. She jumped back in fright and dashed to the basement door, screamed for my uncle and father, and waited for them outside. Once my uncle and father were outside, my uncle could immediately tell my mom was scared and rattled and asked what was wrong. She told him what had happened, and he turned white as a ghost. He told her the daughter who had died used to play a game with her father. When he played the piano, she'd crawl underneath, grab his ankles, and push his feet up and down on the pedals.
Can you see me? I'm here. Behind you, look.
I never believed in ghosts, but a few years ago, I moved into a one-bedroom apartment in Melbourne, Australia, and it was my first time living on my own. The apartment block had been built in the 1930s. I'd been living there for a few months when I came home from work one day and went into the bathroom. I saw something strange. A wooden board which had covered a hole in the ceiling that led to a small attic space lay fractured in two pieces on the ground. I examined the pieces. The board was an inch thick, and it would have taken Bruce Lee or a ninja to break it. I thought the landlord might have sent someone to work in the attic. I was frozen stiff with fear. Someone is up there for sure, I thought. But who? I emailed pictures to the landlord, asking if anyone had been there, with an undertone of annoyance since she hadn't warned me about the repair. Her reply read, "Please call me as soon as you are able to." I called her, and she explained that her last two tenants had said the exact same thing happened to them. She promised to replace the board, and she did the very next day. About a month later, I woke up one night around 4 a.m. My body was covered in goosebumps. It felt like someone was rubbing his or her hands on me. Everything was silent, but then I heard a dragging sound coming from the ceiling above my bed. It was as if someone was pulling a sack of potatoes. I froze, convinced someone was up there. There is no way an animal could make that sound. After 5 minutes, I worked up the courage to turn on the light, armed myself with a cricket bat, and walked to the bathroom. That's when I saw that the brand new board covering the hole was broken in two. I felt sick. Sweat started dripping down my face and froze in terror. The dragging sound had stopped, but I heard something else. Whispering. The sound was clearly coming from above the attic. It sounded like children's voices, and I could hear one sentence repeated over and over. "It's your turn, it's your turn." And then it stopped. Dead silence. I switched on every light in the apartment to make things feel normal. It was 5 a.m. and still dark outside. I watched the TV to unwind, and then all of a sudden, the power shut off and everything went dark. My pet bird Dexter, who I kept in the kitchen, never made a sound at night, but he started squawking like he was being strangled. I'd never heard him make those sort of noises. He was screaming. I was so freaked out, I just left him there and grabbed my car keys, ran outside and sat in my car until the sun came up. When I saw people out walking their dogs, this comforted me enough to go back in. The front door was open, but I figured I might have forgotten to close it when I ran out. I went into the kitchen to check on Dexter, but he wasn't in his cage. I felt sick again. All my windows were closed, so I looked everywhere inside. When I walked to the bathroom, I heard splashing. Dexter was in the toilet. I took him out, washed him, and dried him. I was so confused. At 8 a.m., I called the landlord and gave her a short version of the night. "Oh wow, you heard the whispering too," she said. I stayed in that apartment for 6 months. I heard the whispering on a few occasions, and twice the board covering the hole in the ceiling moved. Although I moved out, the landlord recently called me. She said that her new tenants begged to speak with me about some of the stuff that's going on, but I told her no way. It's their problem now.
Can you see me? I'm here. Behind you, look.
The creepy, old-fashioned porcelain doll with a Victorian appearance, red lips, rosy cheeks, and blue eyes may come to mind when one thinks of a haunted doll, but it's unlikely that anyone still keeps one in their house, unless that house is Warren's Occult Museum. However, those dolls are not the only ones getting possessed. Disney's Frozen Elsa doll, given as a Christmas 2013 gift in the Houston area, made headlines when it appeared to start acting strangely. For 2 years, the doll was working as it was supposed to, reciting phrases from the movie and singing Let It Go when a button was pressed. In 2015, it started randomly alternating between English and Spanish languages, even though this particular doll wasn't programmed to sing in Spanish. The woman who purchased the doll claimed that even with its switch off, the doll would start speaking and singing randomly. In December 2018, the family chose to get rid of the Elsa doll. Despite tossing it in the garbage, the family eventually discovered it hidden inside a bench in their living room weeks later. Following the discovery, Elsa started to speak and sing solely in Spanish, very soon after which the family made another attempt to scrap the Elsa doll. The doll was double-bagged and put in the bottom of the garbage can, which was soon picked up by waste collectors. The family left for a trip sometime later, but when they got back, the haunted doll was waiting for them in their backyard.
You want to be my
In their
friend?
last attempt, the family sent Elsa through the mail to Bob, a friend in West Virginia who had a strange fancy for the occult. He fastened the possessed doll to the front bumper of his truck. According to the woman's most recent update in October 2020, the doll hasn't returned to Houston, but Bob did send a text that the doll was missing from the front of his truck.
Do you want to be my friend? Come play with me.